Hello everyone, my name is Tanish Kohli and welcome to the second video of playlist called Introduction to Python. So we have seen some theory about Python. So today we will be doing basic programming. There are some things to keep in mind when starting Python that a very basic thing that Python is case sensitive. So what does case sensitive mean? That if you are writing Python and if you just change the small p to capital P, these two will be treated differently. A lot of programming languages are case sensitive, so this isn't one of a big deal. But the second point is, if you have prior experience of coding in any other programming language like C, C++, Java, then you know these curly braces. They play a very important role in programming, and basically whole programming depends on these. But in Python, there is nothing like curly braces. What here is, it is called indentation. It is basically spacing. You have to write four spaces, one, two, three, four, or maybe just one tab space. We will be discussing this more about while we will be coding. The third is the most important point, to use error messages to help you learn. A lot of people learn coding, but they actually don't know how to troubleshoot it. So basically what we will do is that, we will not just focus on programming, but also focus on how to remove those error messages, and these error messages just help you learn more. Don't get afraid of these error messages in any programming language. It's just a common topic. So let's just get started with arithmetic operators. So we all have used calculator. Let me just show you. So it is pretty easy. Like, just we have to add two numbers, 5 plus 3, it will give us 8. This is a mathematical operation easy for humans to understand. But how will we define this thing to a programming language? Because a programming language, it doesn't know what this symbol means. This symbol needs to be defined in the programming language itself. We will see how this symbol is defined in a programming language when we will study object oriented programming. It is one of the most interesting thing that you will learn in Python. But for the moment, let's just say that there is a thing called Python library, and this addition symbol is defined in that Python library. So whenever you start running Python, let me just show you Python 3.8. So let's just add 5 and 3. So this addition sum is already defined in Python library. That means it will return us the sum of it, 8. That just sounds very easy, but it is a bit of an interesting coding behind the scenes. So to get started, we can just avoid all the topics that we have discussed, because we are just studying operators at this moment. So there are multiple operators in Python. Let me just read these for you: addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, modulus, exponential, and divide and round to the nearest integer. So let's just write program for all of these. I will be opening VS Code. You can use anything if you want. You can write this code in Python command shell. You can use PyCharm. You can use Jupyter Notebooks. But I like using VS Code, so I will be using VS Code. So our interactive Python notebook has opened itself. Let me just run this block for you, run this cell. So what this is doing is that it is, taking our command and running it. Just a very simple way of doing it. But this is initializing itself because we are using Anaconda, and it is a virtual environment, which is much more preferential if you are doing something experimental. So here is our answer. A basic addition has been done. So a basic subtraction, 5 minus 3 leads us to 2. So this is not actually a multiplication sign. It is called asterisk. Raised to power, sometimes people use this thing. So let's just run this. 5 into 3. It should return 15. And now it is 5 divided by 3. Let's just see output over here for a while. 5 divided by 3, it's this 1.66667. you can see the accuracy is pretty much good compared to a calculator. This is one of a very, you know, interesting thing if you're not a programmer. So it is called modulus. Let me just show it to you. So, you know, 5 when divided by 3 gives us a remainder of 2. We know this thing. But, you know, a lot of programming languages actually, in any calculator you cannot do this thing in a very simple calculator, but in programming language you can do this thing by using a operator that is called modulus. You know, 5 modulus 3 should give us 2, the remainder that is left. And when we use 2 asterisks, it just goes like, you know, 5 raised to power 3, like that. Let's just run this. 125, that's also correct answer. And you know, 5 divided by 3 will not give us this decimal thing, it will only give us the quotient that is over here. You know, 5 divided by 3 gives us this quotient, no remainder, means we are just leaving the remainder, not dividing it anymore, and our output is as an integer. All right, so we have done this thing. Now you must be thinking that all right, this is cool, but what if I write something complex like 5 into 3 plus 4, and then like this, and then multiply it to 2 minus 1? What will be the output of this? So in mathematics there is a concept called you know, priorities. It is not a correct name, but this is what it is. So priorities shows us that, you know, the exponential part or these braces will be solved first. You know, here we can see that the parentheses are, you know, preferred the most, then we solve the exponential part, then we do the multiplication, then division, then subtraction, addition, and then subtraction. So what should be the output of this? Let's just run this thing on a calculator first. All right, invalid output. So let's just write this thing only. 5 asterisk 3 plus 4 asterisk brackets 2 minus 1. Sorry, parenthesis if you guys say it like that. So it is giving us 31. I don't know I have calculated it correctly or not. Let's just see it, that, you know, while we were entering it, everything just was getting solved without any priorities. So let's just copy this whole function and run it on Python. So I just take another cell and paste it and run it. The answer is 19, of course. Let's just solve this. So 2 minus 1 will be solved first. That will lead us to 1. So 1 into 4 will leave us to 4. 4 asterisk 3 will lead us to 15. And 15 plus 4 will lead us to 19. So this is how it will be solved. Similarly, 3 raised to 2 will give us 9. 9 plus 5 will give us 14. It's that simple. All right. So let's just go to next topic, and that is our variables. Let me just show it to you. So what are variables? Uh, I will show it to you using a very good explanatory example. So suppose we have to use 7 multiple times, or we have to perform some operations on 7. That means we have to add 7 and 1 and then return this 7 only, like it should just return 8 itself. So we just take a variable and we can name it anything. The naming is pretty simple. You can we will see the documentation about it. So a is equals to 7 plus 1, so a will be equal to 8. You know, the formal definition of variable is they hold space in memory and are referenced with the name they are given. That means a is a reference point. So this must be a block of 2 bytes in memory, as this is an integer and an integer takes 2 bytes. So this must be a block of 2 bytes, and it is stored as 7. So it will be having some memory address. Let's just say 1128 750, anything. Like we don't know this address for sure at this time. And you know, we will just replace, we will just use A to reference this memory location, which will reference this memory block. So we are referencing A as 7. This is called variable. These are way more useful than anything in programming. Let's just see how we can define variables. All right. We have x, y, and z that are initialized as 3, 4, and 5. So let's just see what is the value of x. It should return us 3. Correct. Let's just see what is the value of z. It should return us 5. But there is also a very interactive way, since Python is a interactive programming language. So we have an interactive way of initializing. No other programming language gives us this thing. I'm talking about C, C++, Java, not JavaScript as well. So exactly the same initialization is can also be done using this. So what is the correct way of initializing a variable? A variable naming is something that plays a very important role in a clean program. We don't have to write just a program, it should be clean and readable code. So this clean and readable code goes when there are clean variables. So this is the naming principle of variables. Suppose we have to write a variable my height, so we will be using my underscore height, or the way I define it is my height, capital HEIGHT. This also works a lot of time, means a lot of time it also gives you a warning, but this thing never gives you a warning. This is actually a proper way of defining functions, defining variables, and it is used a lot. Now let's see what is called data types. So let's just first see data types, two data types, integer and float namely. So an integer is, they are discrete values and they are uh, not in decimal places. And if we are writing 4, this is an integer. We are writing 6, this is an integer. We are writing 99, this is an integer. We are writing any number that doesn't have any decimal point in it, it is an integer. It can be negative, it can be positive. This is some mathematical thing only. If the number is in decimal, it is called float in programming language. So here I am defining x as x is equals to 4.7. So this should be a float. And we are defining y as y is equals to 4. This should be an integer. Just a basic logic. Now let's just see that what are the types of x and what are the type of y. And this is a print function to print the output. Let's just see. It is showing us class float. So this is also an object-oriented programming approach, which we will be seeing in our upcoming series. But for now, we are seeing float. That is also enough. If we just do let me just show you that this also gives us the same output, float. We are printing this, so it is printing class float, as this is a type of float, but it is written as a class. All right, we can also do one thing that is called conversion. We can convert floats to integers, integers to float, vice versa, everything that is possible, every conversion that is possible. So what we are doing is that we are converting 4.7 as an integer. That means this 7.7 will be gone and x will be now an integer 4, and we are making this 4 a float. That means it will now have a decimal place, and since there is nothing after decimal, it will just show us 4.0. And let me just also show you that what is the value of x. So the x is 4 now, and y is a float, so it should be 4.0. That's correct. And now it's types. So now x is an integer and y is a float. One more very interesting thing that I want to show you guys is that we are going to add 0 0.1 plus 0 0.1 plus 0 0.1. Will this be equal to 0 0.3? What do you guys think? Should this be equal to 0 0.3? The answer is false. Let me just show you what 0.3, 0.3, 0.1, 0.1, and 0.1 leads us to. Anyway, just adding this, it gives us a slight deviation. This is a way of approximating float, and that is why comparing two floats is never considered a good practice, because this slight deviation will always come, and sometimes your code will be logically correct, but because of this slight deviation your answer could be wrong. Now going to Boolean comparison and logic operation. Similar to arithmetic operation, there are also Boolean comparisons. What does Boolean means? It means true or false. For a program, it means 0 or 1. If it's a false, it's a 0. If it's a true, it's a 1. So we will see that is 5 greater than 3? Yes, it is. So what this program should tell us, it should tell us true. Now we can also, you know, use is 5 less than 3? No, it is not. So it is returning as false. So is 5 equals to 3? There is one thing that I would like to show you here. I know that the error is going to come, but just to show this thing to you guys. See, cannot assign to a literal, because this is how we initialize a variable. It is not a comparison operator. To make this a comparison operator, we need double equals to. Now, is 5 equals to 3? No, it is not. It should just return us false. Great. We can also compare multiple conditions simultaneously. That means is 5 less than 3 and 5 equals to 5. This is a true condition and this is a false condition. So what should be the output? False and true gives us false. If we are having a condition or is any one thing is true, it is true. The output should be true. Correct. And now it is not operator. That means whatever this operation will result in, its value will be changed. That means 5 is less than 3. This is a false condition, but not false, which means it should return true. True. That's it for this video. It is already a lengthy video, and in the next video we will see more about strings and compare this Jupyter notebook only. So thank you so much. See you guys in the next video.